This is a Let's Talk Church Safety and Security microsode with your host, Paul Buckner. So, some of you guys know that I do the civilian police chaplain thing, and this is something that's near and dear to my heart. We are seeing, and I did an entire episode of my podcast talking about, as Americans, we're seeing happen to our law enforcement what happened to our Vietnam veterans. And that is, we allowed a very small group of militantly minded people with an agenda to physically attack, verbally berate, and assault with, especially with urine, our Vietnam veterans as they came home from Vietnam. And our veterans, they're getting off of airplanes and boats, and they're being suddenly, accosted by people who are like, you're a baby killer, you're a monster, you're awful because you served your nation. And we had a media that was vilifying the military in print and on television, on the radio, to a remarkable degree. And a very, very small number, of our American servicemen and women committed atrocities during that war. But they were being trotted out left and right as though they were the norm, the rule. And now in our culture, we're seeing the very same thing. And what happened was, we saw, to this day, I have friends and family that are scarred emotionally by what happened to them when they returned home. Really, in many ways, more than the conflict itself. Many of our servicemen and women served in roles where they never took a human life actively. And you've got people in supply, people that were flying transport planes and whatever. You got folks on ships that weren't actively involved, but they came home, and their PTSD, their trauma, their heartache, the thing that keeps them up at night to this day is the reception they received when they came home. The same thing is happening to our law enforcement. And I was approached by someone yesterday at my church. He's law enforcement and tried to recruit me for his department. He understands that I do the civilian chaplain thing. I've prayed with him. He knows my heart. And we got to talking, and he said his department is down 45 individuals. Now, yeah, we have to bracket that. There are people leaving due to illness, injury, retirement, but there are people who are just hanging it up. They're saying, I'm walking away, I'm done. And we need better ways to help them cope with the things they see. All of that, that's part of what I do. But then there's people who are being actively recruited away to other departments. And we're seeing happen to law enforcement. By the way, $5,000 sign-on bonus. This guy said it probably will reach as much as $15,000. And I've been told that when I go to the academy in August, that the recruitment, people from as far away as Dallas, which I guess they come up every year, but the people from possibly farther than Dallas can come up, and that the recruitment is going to be more like the NBA round one draft pick. It's going to be insane, and which is going to be great for officers to get those sign-on bonuses. But man, oh man, why am I talking about all this? Now's the time to honk and wave at cops. Now's the time to actively engage law enforcement that and say, hey, I know what you do is tough. Thank you for doing it, because we have departments that are literally crippled. And if we let this garbage situation continue, where we as a culture are allowing people to vilify our law enforcement, it's only going to get worse. And another officer I was talking to yesterday, we were talking about the situation with the sign-on bonuses, and we talked about two things that I thought were very, very interesting. Number one, we talked about the fact that these bonuses will probably get bigger. The fact that it's probably going to end up very much like what happened with nursing, where they were offering huge bonuses, and some places were offering to pay for part or all of college. There are agencies now that don't normally pay people to go through the academy that are talking about paying people to go through the academy. We already have a drought of good cops. It's really hard to keep good cops. And now we're talking literally about losing officers possibly faster than we can get them trained. And so it's something we need to be thinking about and praying about as a culture, because honestly, if we lose too many cops, we're going to be fighting tweakers in the street. And I've had that experience. That's no fun. So, now, number one, pray for people you know who are police officers. Thank them when you see them out in public, even if you just look at them and say, hey, I appreciate what you do. You don't have to say thank you for your service or whatever. Hey, appreciate what you do. Thank you for what you do. Thirdly, if an officer has ever done something for you, they saved your life, they came at a critical moment, they gave you some advice when you were in trouble. I know a lot of people that were in handcuffs in the backseat of a cop car and got kind of a dad talk, a loving, and not necessarily loving, sometimes it's kind of rough, but saying, listen, you're about to go to jail, and this is going to be bad, and this is possibly going to be the worst night of your life. You can use this as a springboard, or you can decide that you hit bottom and that's where you want to stay. And they decided, I don't ever want to come back here. I've been there for some of those dad talks. Maybe an officer saved your life. Maybe an officer at an accident or whatever saved the life of a loved one. It happens every day. Maybe an officer caught the burglar with the knife in his hand in the entryway to your home. It's time to go onto social media and to flood social media with the things that we're thankful for, and tag the police department, because almost all these police departments have Facebook pages. It's time for those things to be out there, because I might get a little bit about this, but we literally are in an era where people will say things like, they'll see something positive about law enforcement. Oh, thank God, finally, a good officer actually helping people. Really? Literally every day, thousands of police officers literally save the lives of or otherwise protect people in this country. But because the news media and social media doesn't tell us it's happening, it doesn't happen. I might have a little bit of an opinion on that. I might get a little bit frustrated about that, but it's very, very true. And so it's something to think about. It's time to flood Facebook and social media at large with these things to help the public at large to go, oh wow, every one of us has a story. Every one of us has a story of a loved one or someone who was positively impacted by law enforcement. And if you think about it, well, my sister-in-law, she was being beat on by her boyfriend, and they were actually able to get the right charges, and the prosecutor worked with them, and he went away. There's the negative things that happen, but we tend to focus on the negative. It's time to flood Facebook with the positives. And this is how bad it is. In my area, we have a young officer, great guy. He's a good cop now. He's going to be an amazing cop. And he got a bicycle for a little boy in foster care. I've talked about this kid. This kid really impacted my heart. Really being 13 and finding out that your parents don't want you back and you're in foster care until you turn 18 for good. And having some conversations and trying to do verbal CPR, trying to breathe some life into this kid. This young officer arranged for a bicycle to be cleaned up. We replaced the pedals on it and had a helmet, got the helmet to this kid, took a picture, got it on their social media, and almost 20,000 people saw it. Now, this is a department that might have 1,500 people in their whole city. And from my area, which is in the Joplin, Missouri area, south of Springfield, as far away as Kansas City, people were commenting on what they were seeing, and they were commenting on the fact that they were grateful for this police officer. People were offering other bicycles and things like that to try to help. But what surprised me, it's twofold. Number one, people are really hungry for good news about law enforcement. The average person is actually pro-law enforcement, whether they realize it or not, because they're definitely not pro-crime in the streets, if they're thinking at all. Secondly, they don't realize how messed up and biased their situation has become. They don't realize that. So I'm going to be doing an entire episode of Beside the Badge, talking about pay increases and different things that are coming into law enforcement, because a good cop is going to become unbelievably sought after. If you're not a goober, they're going to be doing everything in their power to recruit you. But we need to maybe shift that paradigm and think about the fact that maybe we should be doing things to retain the ones we already have, and which is unfortunately a problem in any work environment. But I'm going to be doing an entire episode about that. If you get bored, I also have an episode out there of Beside the Badge. You can Google it. It's like Police Chaplain to America. Don't do to our law enforcement what you did to our veterans. And it's a small podcast. I don't get anywhere near the viewership that you might think, or listenership. But I'm getting feedback from people saying, "Amen, brother. This is a problem." So remember, Semper Disciplina, a lifestyle of discipline training. Always be training. Remember, practical over tactical. It's got to be training before toys. You don't need to look tactical. You need to be practical. Get that training. Remember my third saying that I love so much, which is keep your powder dry. Make sure that your equipment, your body, yourself is in good shape so that you're ready should the problem come, should the fight come to you. God bless. If you enjoyed this microsode, check out the video and audio versions of the Let's Talk Church Safety and Security podcast.